Hello, 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 everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Viper Strike 95, and today we have here another Viper's Game Day Flights. Guten Tag, everyone. I hope you're all doing well here today. And this iteration of the Game Day Flights, we're going to be here in Germany for the very first time of the series. And we're just right outside of Munich, Germany, the largest city in southern Germany today, and we're going to be covering one of the bigger matchups in German football in the Bundesliga this week. We're going to follow along as we see Bayern Munich traveling all the way up to Leverkusen to take on Bayer 04 Leverkusen today. So I hope you guys have a great week, and I hope you guys had a great week. Happy Friday. And the weekend has finally arrived. So we're going to be preparing for a pretty epic adventure here today, and we'll learn about the two clubs today as well in their rich histories. So before we get started, I do want to say hello to everyone in chat. We have all the lurkers here too. I hope you're all having a good week. So our flight plan today should be a pretty simple one. So we have here in our flight plan, of course, this week, of course, we'll be traveling starting from Echo Delta November X-Ray. We'll fly over to the Allianz Arena, the current home of Bayern Munich. We'll fly, then do a short hop over to the Olympia Stadion. Then from there, we'll head into downtown Munich. We'll visit the famous Marktplatz, the famous square here in Munich. Then we'll go south and make our way over to Bavaria Park. And we'll fly over here. And that's before we went to, we're gonna fly here as well. And then from there, we'll head west. We'll head our way into Augsburg. Do some flying to downtown Augsburg and FC Augsburg. Then west, we'll make our first stop here at Stuttgart Airport. Echo Delta Delta Sierra will be our first stop at Stuttgart. Then from there, we'll go from there, downtown Stuttgart. We'll visit the MHP Arena, the home of VfB Stuttgart. Then from there, we'll travel up north. We'll fly around with a brief flyover of Mannheim. We'll briefly fly over here into Mannheim. Then from there, we'll continue on to Mainz, and we get to fly over MEWA Arena, home of FC Mainz 05. Then we go to travel into Mainz. And then make our second stop at Frankfurt Airport. Echo Delta Delta Foxtrot will be our second stop. Then from there, we'll travel to Deutsche Bank Park, home of Eintracht Frankfurt. Then we fly around to downtown, and then we'll head up through northwest, and we'll make our way to a waypoint here, so that way we can wrap around into Leverkusen. And we'll fly over Leverkusen, visit the Bayer Arena, and visit the Bayer plant at Bayer, and then land at Echo Delta Kilo Lima at Leverkusen Airport. So I think that should be a pretty sound plan. I couldn't see a super tight pump, mostly lurking. So the plan here today is something you probably most of us don't really see in MSFS 2024. Now, I was originally planning to take the DC-3, but then I remembered just briefly there was the JU-52, which if you guys know about me and the OGs that know about my flight sim career, I did a lot of flying in the Junkers JU-52. Was my favorite local legend of MSFS 2020. So I thought, I wanted to know if it was safe to do it in 2024, and yes, it is safe to do it. So here we are, we're flying the JU-52. Now, for any of you guys who are new to the channel and wanted to know more about the Junkers, this was Germany's equivalent of the DC-3. What I mean is, it's an airliner, transporter, and more. They built over 4,800 of these planes. They first flew in 1930, of course, but the JU-52 was a really important aircraft for German aviation because it incorporated coagulated duraluminum metal skin, which was very popular for Junkers and set for many of their record-breaking aircraft. And this plane was really unique. It wasn't just a really great aircraft for airliners. It also was a great military transport plane because it could take off nearly anywhere. And it was used a lot from airliners to the Luftwaffe in the Second World War. And even when the post-war era, the J-52 was still used by military and civilian operators. In fact, there were even still many of them used until the 1980s. So this plane has had a rich history in aviation, the Junkers. It was definitely a great aircraft for its time. And not only did they come with wheel variants, it even came with skis and even floats. Yes, there is a float Ju-52 as well. It was very much used by Lufthansa, of course. And even post-war, they were still used. The Swiss still used them. The Spaniards used it, but they were used a lot for both new routes and stuff. And apparently they're coming out with a brand new Ju-52 that's going to be in the air right now. So yeah, they're going to be building a brand new Ju-52, and it looks really cool. The new Ju-52, the A60. But it looks really cool. 3 turboprop engines and stuff. That looks really, really cool. That was really cool. I would love to see that in the sim. But these engines are pretty cool. Now, in the sim, this is a bit faster than they were being real life, but these are powered by 3 BMW engines with 680 horsepower each. Now, max speed, they can go to 143 knots, but for some reason, the sim, it goes around 150. So this thing can be quite speedy, of course. Its range is about 540 nautical miles and a speed of 19,000 feet. Pretty cool plane, though. The Ju-52, really neat. So it's great to have this plane back in the hangar, of course. Of course, it also means I haven't started this plane in a long time. So because of it, I'm going to have to look back my checklist because this is on so we'll just turn it off. Now to start the engines, and this one's going to be taking a little bit of a while. Then we start with engine 3. Here we go, engine on. Okay. So all this stuff is turned on, of course. So there you go. So we can finally get ready here to take off here in the J52. Looks like everything's ready to get going, and we're going to take off here very shortly. Now, the one thing I've always liked about the J52, even back on MSFS 2020, was how stable this plane is. This is a very stable aircraft, of course. Really neat aircraft. So we're about to fly into Munich today. If you guys aren't aware about the city of Munich and Munich itself, Munich is one of the really cool cities in Germany. It's the capital and populous city of Bavaria. Population 1.6 million people, make it Germany's third largest city after Berlin and Hamburg. It's the 11th largest city in the EU. Munich dates back to 1158 and it played a big role in both Bavarian and German history. You see, Munich was, after all, the major city of the Reformation. It remained a Catholic stronghold during the Reformation period. And during the 20th century, this was mainly where the rise of the Nazi Party happened, was in Munich. Munich was bombed heavily during World War II, but much of its historic architecture has been restored, and it's hosted the 1972 Summer Olympics. And it's a major center for science, tech, finance, innovation, business, and tourism. It's actually Germany's most livable city, and among the top 3 worldwide. Munich is such a really cool city. It's home to the headquarters of many companies like BMW, Siemens, Allianz, and Munich Re. Of course, it's famous culturally for the Oktoberfest, the world's largest Volksfest, which is beer festival and all that too. And we're finally off. So we're up, and away we go. So, yeah, it's good to be back in this J52, man. This is a bit of a throwback. Plus, this is a German aircraft, which makes perfect sense. We're in Germany. So, in this series, of course, will be, for this weekend, of course, outside of this matchup with Bayern Leverkusen and Bayern Munich, we'll be back also Sunday to cover America's most popular and visited national park, Great Smoky Mountains National Park, here in So, man, this is so nice to get this plane back in the air. I miss this thing so much. Yes, talk about a real throwback to my earlier days of streaming. So this is Allianz Arena to your right, guys. Is Allianz Arena, the home of Bayern Munich. Beautiful home of Bayern Munich, of course. 75,000 fans seat in that stadium. Home of Bayern. Also, another thing I like about the Junkers, this is a super stable aircraft to fly. I love the Junkers because it's so stable. Super stable plane. So this is downtown Munich. We'll fly over the Olympic Stadium, of course. like I said, I may not even need the autopilot because of how stable this thing is. This is super easy to fly. So guys, I hope you're all having a good week, my guys. I hope you're all having a great week yourselves. Hope your week's going well, of course. My week's going pretty decently. I've been doing a ferry flight achievement. Get all those legs completed. Trying to ferry mobile aircraft across the world. I'm doing a world tour. So that's what I've mainly been doing for my time. I'm currently in China right now. In the DA-62, we'll go up to Japan, or Taiwan, and that island Taiwan, and then we're going to make our way over to Japan with the DA-62 and the TBM. Then we got the DC-3, the X-Cub, the Beaver, and then the King Air. So this here is the Olympic Stadium. This used to be the old home for Bayern Munich before they moved to the Allianz Arena, but this is the Olympic Stadium, the home of Bayern. So we're going to go ahead and turn left. We're going to fly into the city center, of course, the Marktplatz, the city center of Munich. So, but man, look how cool this city is. Just look at this place. Here's the market square. So there's the Marktplatz, everyone. Oh man, the JU-52. She's a beauty. Oh, the JU-52, what a beautiful plane. So, beautiful area in here in Munich. So, beautiful area, guys. This is Munich. Really cool city. Munich also has another thing really going for it about Munich, of course. Tons of museums here. Munich has got the Bavarian National Museum. They also got the Glyptothek, which is mainly to Greek and Roman structures. Lots of theater and stuff, too. But, of course, many festivals. Of course, most famously, Oktoberfest is the single most famous festival here in Munich. Really cool stuff. Of course, there's another club in Munich, not besides Bayern. Bayern's far and away the biggest. (288 degrees). Like right here. Trying to find the right heading. So, yeah. Let's see if this autopilot thing works. Let's see if it goes where I want it to go. So this here is the famous homes. This is the Nymphenburg. Very famous palaces over here. Okay, let's go ahead and turn on the autopilot. On. And click. Let's see how it works. Yeah, it is going to work. It's going to take a little slow, but the autopilot is working. It's magic. Look at that. It works, everyone. Let's see if it's heading. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the matchup for today. We'll cover Bayern Munich first, since we're going to be heading to Leverkusen. That's the home match. Bayern Munich is by far the biggest club in the entire country. Bayern Munich hails from Munich. They are known for playing the Bundesliga, and they're by far the most successful club in German football. They've won an insane 34 national titles, including 11 straight of them from 2013 to 2023. And a record 20 national cups, known as the DFB Pokal, is their national cup. And most importantly, too, Bayern Munich are also won many numerous European titles. This club dates back to 1900 by 11 players named Franz John. Although the club won its first national championship in 1932, it was not selected for the Bundesliga when it was formed in 1963. That would be, but that would come in the late 60s. However, the pinnacle of Bayern Munich came in the 1970s under the captain of Franz Beckenbauer, which we'll talk about him later, winning the European Cup 3 consecutive years. And this club has won many more. And not only is it one of the most successful clubs in Europe, Bayern Munich are also one of the most widely supported clubs in the world. Bayern Munich has had incredible support over the last couple decades, of course. They have over 432,000 club members, which is over 4,425 official registered fan clubs and 328,000 members in the fan clubs, making Bayern Munich the single largest sports club in the world by total membership, which is crazy. And they're also the largest revenue of any German club, with $978 million, 78 euros earned between 2024 and 2025 season. Bayern Munich, a club with a rich history. And also some more things about how good Bayern Munich is as a club. They're only one of 2 clubs ever to have won 6 trophies in a single sextuple. Which makes them only one of 5 clubs to win, and they're only one of 5 clubs to have won all 3 of its main club competitions, and is the only German club to do that. Bayern Munich are simply of a tier of its own in terms of, hey, good to see you, Cole member. Yep. We're mainly talking about the rivalry with Bayern Munich and Bayer Leverkusen today. But or Bayer Leverkusen, if you think some Bayer would be more appropriate. But Bayern Munich, huge club, a massive popularity, and a massively popular club. Of course, one of the big things about Bayern Munich, and no worries, my dude, you don't have to know anything about football to get these streams. You don't have to know everything about them, but we're mainly talking about the teams, of course. So a bit of background for this matchup for this week between Bayern Munich and Leverkusen. Bayern Munich, of course, have been completely dominating the German league. They only lost 1 game all year, and it's to Augsburg, actually, which we'll be visiting next. But they have been completely dismantling the league. They got 68 goal differential of 68 goal plus 68 goal differential. To put that in perspective, the second best team in the league, Borussia Dortmund, is only plus 27. Bayern Munich is simply on a different level this year. Absolutely dismantling teams. Now, Leverkusen has had an interesting year as well. I mean, this is the first season without Xabi Alonso. But they're still 6th in the table, 3 points behind RB Leipzig. But they're not doing too badly. They did play in the Champions League a while earlier in the week. They actually managed to draw against Arsenal, which was a surprise. But this should be a good matchup, though, for sure. Oh yeah, and one last thing. The last game day flight we covered was the Milan Derby between Inter and AC. Um, and it turned out it was a pretty close one, but AC Milan managed to beat Inter and gave Inter its first loss of the calendar year, which was huge for AC Milan, as now they are 60 points and they're now only 7 points behind Inter. Um, which is pretty crazy to think about it though. But there was some other crazy stuff, of course, for the German stands, of course. It's not surprising to see Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund in the top two, but third place is an interesting club. Hoffenheim. Yes, Hoffenheim. TSG Hoffenheim. Really interesting little club. They actually play in Hoffenheim, which, if you guys don't know, is literally a village. They actually play in a village in Sinsheim with only 3,000 people, which is pretty crazy to think about. But of course, the major controversy of the club is Dietmar Hopp, and his support was what made it controversial. So there's that too. So pretty important little matchups in Germany, of course. We're going to be appearing to Augsburg, Germany. Augsburg, by the way, is a university town here in Bavaria. It's one of Bavaria's university towns. And it's actually one of Germany's oldest cities, dating back to 15 BC. It's Germany's one of its oldest cities. It was founded as Augusta Vindicorum, named after Augustus, the Roman emperor at the time. It became well known for being a very important post office in the Holy Roman Empire, and Augsburg was also where it played a big role in the Reformation, because it was where the Peace of Augsburg was signed in 1555. Really historic little city, of course, Augsburg is. And they do have their own team, FC Augsburg, which is still in the Bundesliga. And they've been in the league since 2011. They've not been relegated ever since. They've still managed to remain in the Bundesliga since 2011. So, pretty cool stuff. We'll be flying over to Augsburg soon. So, we'll be here soon. So I picked this matchup because there wasn't really any massive games this week for the game day flights. There really wasn't any other big games this week. On March 3rd, there wasn't really any big games at all. I mean, the only other matchup was Botafogo Flamengo, but I wanted to cover the Bayern Munich matchup this week, since I think it was the most interesting, and I haven't done Germany yet. I wanted to actually differentiate some of the places we've flown. So, there's the WWK Arena here at Augsburg, and we'll fly over downtown. So we'll fly over here, and then we'll fly in this area for another 69 nautical miles. So So there's the WWK Arena here in Augsburg. Here it is, downtown Augsburg, of course. So here it is, downtown, of course. So here we go. So we're going to head our way over west, and we're going to make our way over to Bayern Munich. Now, of course, Bayern Munich are very famous in Germany for their famous red kits. In the original club constitution, the Bayern colors were namely white and blue. However, they've been played in white shirts and black shirts until 1905. And then they eventually changed them to red shorts and are mainly wore white and maroon home kits. However, in 1968, they changed their color to the red and blue striped shirts with blue shorts and socks. And of course, then afterwards in 1974, they wore now an all red kit, which is what Bayern Munich has worn ever since. So they wore their famous all red in kits onwards. Now, of course, the close away kits have a wide range of colors: white, black, blue, and gold green. And they also have a distinct international kit too. In 2013, 2014, they wore a all red home kit with the Bavarian flag watermark, and then an away kit that is a Lederhosen inspired Oktoberfest kit, and an all navy blue international kit. So definitely pretty cool though. And one of the really cool things about Bayern Munich, of course, is definitely the club's rich tradition with their kits. Now, of course, its crest is also unique too. It's changed several times. Originally, it consisted of the stylized letter of FCBM, which is FC Bayern Munich, which were woven into one symbol. However, then they changed it, which was in 1954. They officially changed it to the crest we see nowadays, mainly a single color of red and white, and of course the symbol in the middle is the flag of Bavaria. and the colors of Bavaria in the center, and FC Bayern Munich in white and a red ring. And that has still been the crest to nowadays since 1954. FC Bayern Munich, one of the most iconic crests in European football anywhere. So, very iconic crest, in a very iconic uniform too. We'll be making our way over to Stuttgart very soon. We're mainly flying around southern Germany. We're not in the Black Forest region of Germany though. So I did pick out next week's game day flights, and if you guys want to know what next week's game day flight, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what it is. Our next game day flight will be in Spain. Actually, we'll be returning to Spain again. We're going to be covering the good old Madrid derby with Real Madrid and Atletico. Should be a very fun one, of course. The two big giants in Madrid. It'll be really cool. It'll be from Sevilla to Madrid. It would be Seville to Madrid, of course. So we'll fly Seville, Cordoba, into Toledo, and then to Madrid. So it should be a very fun journey, of course, and should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that with you guys, of course. As in for the rest of the community, of course, and for the rest of the community, later today, Two-Tone Murphy will be back in Alaska for a DC-6 cargo haul. Of course, he'll be doing it in a DC-6. He'll be starting in Ketchikan, which I visited there before. Then he'll go to Sitka, then Petersburg, and then make his way to Juneau. I got to visit 3 of the cities he got to visit. Ketchikan's really cool. Southeast Alaska is absolutely beautiful. If you guys never flown in that area of the sim, you probably should. Think of it as the North American version of the fjords in Norway. Some absolutely beautiful airports and absolutely beautiful scenery in Alaska. You have some incredible scenery in this part of Alaska. Absolutely incredible scenery here. So we'll get there for 4. We got 259 nautical miles to our final stop here in Leverkusen. Let's see how we're doing here outside, of course. Looks absolutely gorgeous, this part of Germany. Absolutely stunning. And then Saturday, Allison Johnson would be back, and this will be the end of her series, actually. Yes, this is going to be the finale for Allison Johnson's helicopter around the world trip. It's going to be her finale, D99. She'll be flying from Plockton to Oban, Wellsburn to Fair Oaks to Brooklands, and to end her series, which would be absolutely incredible news. This is amazing news for Allison. She did 99 days, 26,000 nauticals in a helicopter, which is incredible achievement for Allie to recreate Amy Johnson's flight. No, the Jennifer Murray flight. She did amazing. I can't wait to see what her next series is going to be. Allison's a legend in this community and a massive inspiration for my streaming career. So we'll be making our way very soon. We'll get into Germany a bit closer. But the Junkers is flying really good. 81% fuel. We're doing pretty good here in Germany, obviously. beautiful day here in Bavaria, of course. We'll be entering into Stuttgart soon. We don't have that much far left to Stuttgart. So Bayern Munich, getting back to the Bayern Munich thing, they play at the Allianz Arena, which is their current home. Since the 2005-06 season, it's one of the most modern stadiums in Europe. It's been the home of Bayern Munich. It's also used to be the home of 1860 Munich, their local rivals, until they left the stadium in 2017. But one of the really cool things about Allianz Arena is it's known for its exterior of ETFE plastic panels. And it's the first stadium in the world with a full color changing exterior. It's Germany's second largest stadium behind the Westfalenstadion in Dortmund. Of course, its sponsor is a locally based sponsor, Allianz. Of course, they changed their stadium colors. Their seats changed when 1860 Munich left the stadium, and they changed their colors. Once 1860 Munich left, and it's now the seats are mainly red and white, the colors of Bayern Munich. In addition to hosting soccer, of course, or German football, it also hosted American football games. It's hosted in 2022 and 2024. And of course, it's also going to host it next year as well as part of the NFL International Series. It's going to host one the next season. And of course, it's going to host some concerts in 2026, Linkin Park. The Weeknd, BTS, and Foo Fighters are going to be making their appearances here in Allianz Stadium for concerts, of course. So we'll be making our way through here. Our next slide, of course, will be the club supporters, obviously. Bayern Munich has had, of course, in terms of club membership, they're the largest sports club in the world in terms of membership. At the 2018 meeting, the Bayern board reported that the club had 291,000 official members and 400 fan clubs with 390 members, making it the largest fan membership club in the world. Outside Bayern Munich, the only other clubs that can rival Bayern Munich in terms of club by membership include Benfica in Lisbon, Portugal, River Plate in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and their rivals, Boca Juniors. And then fifth is Bayern Munich's more bitter rival, Borussia Dortmund, at 218,000. Then surprisingly, we have, and then some of the other ones in the top 10 include FC Schalke, Sporting Lisbon, and FC Porto. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And of course, with 75,000 fans basically every day, it's been sold out every single game Allianz Arena has been sold out, and making Bayern Munich the most popular club in Germany. Some of their most prominent ultra groups include Scherka München, Inferno Bavaria, Red Munich's 1879, Südkurve 73, Munich Maniacs 1996, Red Angels, and Red Sharks. And the ultra scene has been recognized by certain groups for taking a stance against right-wing extremism, racism, and homophobia. The club anthem is mainly Stern des Südens, which is literally translates to Star of the South. Another notable song is Mia San Mia, which is basically Bavarian for We Are Who We Are, and it's the motto of the club. And it's been there for decades, of course. And the club also has several high-profile supporters, including Pope Benedict the 16th, Boris Becker, Wladimir Kishenko, Horst Seehofer, and Edmund Stoiber are some of the famous supporters for FC Bayern. Now, of course, there's several rivals of Bayern Munich. I almost did do Borussia Dortmund. Bayern Dortmund are the two most successful teams in Germany, and thus they're the biggest rival for Bayern nowadays. Known as Der Klassiker is what it's called, the German Classico, and they've been mainly competitive in the Bundesliga. They've won 26 of the past 31 Bundesliga titles have been won by those two clubs, and especially grew during the 90s, as Borussia Dortmund's stature increased to challenge the perennial title favorites of Bayern Munich. And they remain very successful, of course, over the past couple of years. Now, of course, they also have a local derby with 1860 Munich, but sadly, 1860 Munich just hasn't been as relevant as it once was, sadly. As 1860 Munich has fallen off immensely. They are now in the 3rd Bundesliga, which is kind of sad. I would like to see maybe at some point some 1860 returns back to relevancy again. It's just that the Munich Derby has not been as relevant as it once was. But there are other, but of course, with Bayern Munich being always in Europe, and they've always been mostly the champions of Germany, Bayern Munich's biggest rivals, some of their bigger rivals, are in Europe with other European clubs, particularly that of Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, AC Milan, and Manchester United. Of course, their biggest European rival, Real Madrid, is their biggest European rival. In fact, Real Madrid versus Bayern is the most played matchup in the Champions League, with 28 official matches between the two clubs. And due to Bayern being one of the toughest teams to beat for Real Madrid supporters often refer to Bayern as Bestia Negra, the Black Beast. However, despite that, they have never met in the Champions League final of the Champions League or European Cup. They have never met. Who knows? Maybe one day Bayern versus Real Madrid could actually meet in the finals. I think it's a pretty important deal if that scenario ever happens, ever. So, would be really interesting to see, of course. And here's all their club honors. I mean, come on, look at the trophies that this club has. Bayern Munich has won an insane number of trophies over the years. 34 Bundesligas, by far more than any other club. No one could touch Bayern. The next closest club that has won the most Bundesliga is Borussia Dortmund, and they only have 5 of them. 5 of them. Can you believe Borussia Dortmund has only won 5 of them? Bayern Munich has completely dismantled the rest of them. Then the other ones include Borussia Mönchengladbach, also have 5. Then you have Werder Bremen with 4, and then the number 5 is going to be Hamburger SV with 3, along with Stuttgart also have 3. Which is pretty crazy to think about. Only a handful of clubs have ever won the Bundesliga. Which is pretty crazy. In addition, they have the record 20 DFB Pokals, which again is another big deal, of course. They've won more than anyone else, the DFB Pokal. They've won 20 of them. The next closest is Werder Bremen with 6. Then you have Schalke, Borussia Dortmund, and Eintracht Frankfurt all with 5. That pretty much rounds out your top 5. But yeah, Bayern Munich has won the most at both of those. They won the Super Cup 11 times. In the Liga Pokal 6, like they dominated Germany. Like no club has ever dominated the entire country. On top of it, they've won the Champions League 6 times, which is the same now as Liverpool. And only trail behind Real Madrid and AC Milan in terms of the Champions League. They've won a UEFA Cup once, and they won the Cup Winners' Cup once in 1967. 2 European Super Cups in 2013-2020, and they've won the Club World Cup twice and won the Intercontinental Cup twice. But yes, this is one of the most historic and storied clubs in Europe. Absolutely insane club with a rich history. So I think we'll be arriving in Stuttgart very soon. We'll be arriving to our first stop in Stuttgart. So Stuttgart. So let's go ahead and cover Stuttgart pretty quickly. Stuttgart is the capital and largest city of Baden-Württemberg. And its population is around 613,000 people, making it Germany's 6th largest city, and its metro area is around 5 million people. One of the most innovative cities in the world. It's around the top 25 most innovative cities in the world, and it's hosted both the 1974 and 2006 FIFA World Cups. However, Stuttgart's a pretty unique German city. It's set around by hills and vineyards, valleys, and parks, and it's known as the cradle of the automobile, thanks to the fact it's home to the Mercedes-Benz and Porsche museums, as well as many auto magazines. So as a result, Stuttgart is Germany's automotive city. Because, and the reason it's called the cradle of the automobile is because they were purported to be invented in this city by Carl Benz and industrialized by Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach. So it might be where the automotive industry has actually took its roots from. The city also is blessed with rich history. This area has been around since the 7th millennium BC as an important agricultural area. The Romans have actually been involved in this area as a regional center, and of course, it grew a lot during the first millennium. And of course, the city is now known nowadays for its high-tech industry, high standard of living, and more. But really cool though. Stuttgart's a neat city. Lots of things to do here in Stuttgart, of course. Stuttgart, call it. But lots of really cool stuff to visit. So here it is, Stuttgart Airport's coming up soon, straight ahead of us. But Stuttgart is known for many interesting places as well in terms of landmarks. Of course, the main square, the Schlossplatz, is the central square, and a very popular area and square for the city. Culturally, it's known for its rich cultural heritage. The State Theater and State Gallery are very popular places for cultural purposes. And of course, lots of museums, particularly the State Museums of Baden-Württemberg, the Old Castle, And then, of course, if you're an automobile lover, you got both the Porsche and Mercedes-Benz museums. Very popular for a lot of the automobile stuff. In terms of sports, they also have their own team. The famous VfB Stuttgart, the Reds, one of Germany's most historic clubs, dating back to 1893. So, very historic club, with several important rivals too. So, pretty cool stuff. Like the Mercedes-Benz Museum, for example, has a lot of different vehicles, like their old models. Like I said, automobiles are a very important part of Stuttgart, so we'll be arriving here very shortly. Now, Stuttgart Airport, by the way, the one we'll be visiting here today. This airport, of course, has multiple railings, but its airport is actually built back in 1948. It was officially known as Stuttgart Airport. It is the 6th busiest airport in the country, with over 11 million passengers in 2018. 2022 was around 6.9 million. But it's mainly flown by many German airlines, but it's mainly flown by Eurowings. It's one of the major bases for Eurowings, as well as Condor, Sun Express, and TY Fly Deutschland. So it flies to destinations all across Europe, as well as the Middle East. So that is where we're going to be doing today, of course. So, yeah, Stuttgart Airport, pretty neat airport. We're going to go ahead and prepare for the landing of our Ju-52. Looking forward to land this old plane. I'm so happy about this plane. I'm loving the Ju-52. I'm reminded why I love this plane so much. Ju-52, it's a fun aircraft. It's super easy to fly. Man, the Ju-52 is such a blast to fly. So stable. So easy to fly. Here you go, guys. Welcome to Stuttgart. So here it is, guys. So we'll just bleed off speed. Stage of flaps. Come on, lose even more speed. 2 stages of flaps. Here's the second stage of flap. And then just try to bleed up those speed. Just try to bleed speed. There we go. And we're stopped. Wow, look at that. Woo, we stopped that plane pretty easily. Oh, we got that Ju-52 stopped. Hey, Perico Alda, where are you at in the moment? Hey, good to see you, Paragalda. We're in Stuttgart, actually. Stuttgart. We're in Stuttgart, of course. In the moment, we're in Stuttgart. We just made our first stop of the day at Stuttgart Airport. We're in Germany today. We're in Baden-Württemberg today. We started in Munich earlier. We went from Munich, and we went our way to Augsburg, and then we enter into Baden-Württemberg at Stuttgart. So we'll travel through our way from Mannheim into Mons and Frankfurt for the next leg before going to Leverkusen. Oh, nice. Yeah, I remember we chatted yesterday. Yep, it's about north of Constance and Radolfzell, and not too far from the Black Forest. That's further west. Of course. So Stuttgart, really cool city, of course. Lots of automobile history if you love automobiles. This is the place to be if you love automobiles. Very highly rated attraction, of course. Very highly rated museum. Yeah, really cool stuff. Yeah, is the fight like what it'd be in real life? Yeah, we're flying the J-52. Should be about 2 hours, of course. We're taking the Junkers J-52, the old Aunt Ju, of course. Really nice plane, of course, as well. So we'll be taking her up, of course. We're going to get ready for the next leg. So we're going to enter into Frankfurt today. We're going to be in Frankfurt, Germany, obviously. So here we go. And yeah, she takes off so easily. So we're gonna go ahead, turn up the flaps. We'll start flying these Junkers, baby. This plane dates back to 1930. Man. And yeah, they're gonna bring this baby back into active production. Of course, with 3 turboprops, of course, and all that, but she's a super neat aircraft. So here's our nav map, by the way, if you want to know Paragalda. So we start here in Munich. This is where we started. Went down to Munich, visit this area, then to Augsburg, then here, and we'll continue on through about Germany. And we're doing this for the Bayer Leverkusen versus Bayern Munich game. That's what's going on today, of course. That's the big game this weekend in Germany. There wasn't really any big matches this weekend. I mean, I checked the schedule for some of the other sports, of course. There really wasn't any huge games this weekend. Like, I wasn't ready to talk the MLS just yet. They didn't really have any rivalry matchups in the MLS. And I wanted to cover an area I haven't covered much before. There just wasn't very many other huge games this weekend, so this was probably the only other games I could probably pick. So this here is Stuttgart. Here it is. Looks pretty cool, though. So this here is downtown. Downtown Stuttgart, of course. So we'll turn left. We'll turn right, I mean. We'll turn right. So yeah, speaking a bit more about the Bundesliga, of course, Bayern Munich isn't even the club that's played the most years in the Bundesliga. Actually, they're technically tied with Werder Bremen for the most seasons played in the Bundesliga with 61. But no club has ever not been relegated from the Bundesliga in the top level. After that, the club with the next most seasons is Borussia Dortmund with 59, and then tied with that is Stuttgart, which is the club we're going to be visiting next, VfB Stuttgart. The Reds, very successful club though, winning 5 league titles and such. We'll turn left. So we'll be going over here. Ah, nice. Yeah, you can see the. Yeah, I can see the stadium. Oh, nice. Yep, Sunday's going to be Espanyol's next matchup, by the way. You mean the red A03 V12 diesels? Yeah. Yeah, red V12 diesels. Oh, really? I didn't know about that. Thank you, Typhon. Yeah, the big old diesel engines. Yeah, should be a really nice aircraft. I can't wait to see how it's airworthy. This. Nice. Espanyol and Mallorca. Should be a good matchup, though. Still haven't won in all those matchups. They should have absolutely won against Real Oviedo. I don't know how that even happened. I don't even know why they couldn't get a win against Real Oviedo. Especially considering that they're the worst team in the league this year. Oviedo's been terrible. I also can't believe why none of Miracles just passed us at 7th. I'm equally more befuddled about that, but there's that too. Some of the other games this weekend as well. Of course, Everton will be back on Saturday. They're going to be playing against Arsenal. Not fun. I'm not looking forward to Everton losing to Arsenal at the Emirates. I'm not looking forward to that. I'm not interested to see Everton lose to Arsenal. Not looking forward to that. Though, here's the thing, though. As someone who supports Everton, at least the Toffees are doing quite well this year. At least we're not miserable like Spurs fans are. If you don't know about Spurs, aka Tottenham, they're terrible this year. They're only they're just a point away from being the 18th position. And guess who they're going to go against tomorrow as well on Sunday? Liverpool. Yeah, if they lose against Liverpool and somehow Forest and West Ham win, which isn't even another question. Forest play Fulham, who has been very consistent. And then West Ham's taken against Manchester City, which would be extremely unlikely. They could be 17th next week. But if they lose to West Ham, if West Ham somehow wins against Manchester City, yeah, Spurs getting relegated. That's like one of the big 6 Premier League clubs just getting relegated. Which is a massive deal. Just saying how big that would be for it to happen. Um, Now, of course, we're going to talk more about Bayern Munich here. Let's go ahead and cover the slideshows. Now let's talk about Bayern Munich's greatest talents. And where do I even begin? It's Germany's biggest club. Of course, Bayern Munich has many icons of the sport. But if I had to pick one icon that is bigger above all else in Bayern Munich's history, it's, of course, it's the one, the only, and the one and only Franz Beckenbauer, Germany's greatest ever player, aka Der Kaiser, one of the greatest and most influential players of all time, and the greatest German legend the sport has ever seen. Two-time European Football Player of the Year, 3 World Cups. He won the 2 European titles and is only one of 10 players to win the World Cup, European Cup, and the Ballon d'Or, making him a very exclusive player to have won all 3 of these. Huge legend, and he played for Bayern Munich from 1964 to 1977. Before playing for the New York Cosmos in the United States, and then ended his career in Hamburg. Beckenbauer was nicknamed the 3rd best football player in the past 100 years after Pele and Maradona. So definitely one of the greatest players in the history of the sport. As well. But a legendary player and a legendary star, known for his iconic sweeper, helped out defenders, and he was also capable in offense. The next greatest player on my list is Thomas Müller. Yes, I put Müller here because if you guys aren't aware about Thomas Müller and don't know anything about him, this dude is an absolute legend at Bayern Munich. He's one of their all-time greatest players. He had basically played for his entire career at Bayern, though right now he's not in Bayern, he's actually in Vancouver. But Thomas Müller has played more games than anyone else in Bayern Munich, 503 league appearances for Thomas Müller. 150 goals, absolutely incredible offensive talent. He can play as a midfielder, he can be an attacker, and he's known for his intelligence, finishing, and positioning. So much so that his nickname is Der Raumdeuter, the interpreter of space. And he's both the all-time German top goal scorer and assist provider in Champions League. And oh yeah, one more thing about Thomas Müller too, if you guys aren't aware about Müller. Thomas Müller is also the most decorated German player ever. Yes, he's the most decorated German in history. 35 trophies. I mean, the dude's won everything. He's won Bundesliga titles, DFB Pokals, Champions Leagues. He's even won the World Cup in 2014 as well. The dude has done everything. And then, of course, after him is Gerd Müller, one of the top Bayern Munich players of the 1970s. Gerd Müller, one of the greatest goal scorers in the sport, and was one of only 10 players to win the World Cup, Champions League, and Ballon d'Or. And of course, he is Bayern Munich's all-time leading goal scorer with 365 goals in the league. Absolutely dominant goal scorer. And definitely one of the great German players of all time for his acceleration, agility, and change of pace. Yeah, I do hope Spurs get relegated too. It would be absolutely hilarious if Spurs got relegated. That would be hilarious if that were to happen. Considering Everton, the English club I support, never got relegated, but Spurs did, would be absolutely hilarious considering if you guys knew what happened at Everton. Pretty freaking hilarious. But of course, we have one of their greatest goalkeepers, Manuel Neuer, especially one of the other most decorated German players of all time. Gerd Müller, of course. And Oliver Kahn's another iconic legendary goal scorer. He's a bit lower on the list. Then we have Philipp Lahm, who is a really successful defender, fullback and midfielder, one of the greatest fullbacks of all time, and was the longtime captain of Bayern Munich and led them to multiple trophies. Good old Philipp Lahm. Outstanding defensive player, known for his ability for his technical intelligence, crossing ability, and versatility. as well. And of course, another recent newer player, Robert Lewandowski, one of the greatest Polish footballer of all time, Robert Lewandowski. 203 goals and only 250 league appearances. The dude was an absolute goal scoring menace. One of the greatest strikers of all time, Robert Lewandowski. Then you have Lothar Matthäus. Lothar Matthäus is going to be one of the great midfielders of the 1980s. And he is still the only German player to receive FIFA World Player of the Year in 1991 and won the Ballon d'Or. But the dude is an absolute icon at Bayern Munich and definitely one of their known for his complete midfielders of all time for his passing, positional sense, and tackling. And it was part of the FIFA 100 list, so definitely an incredible career at Bayern. And of course, where do I even begin with the icon? There's so many more iconic players at Bayern that I could pick from. Right now, I mean, they got Harry Kane, who we all know about Harry Kane. Harry Kane is absolutely been destroying things in the Bundesliga right now. Jamal Musiala could be the next big thing in German football. Musiala has all the talent in the world. I know he's been recovering from his knee injury, but I know he's been doing great. And more. Oh yeah, Everton Stadium is brand new, by the way. Let me show you briefly. Yes, the Everton situation, they just opened the stadium this year. Let me show you. Real quick. Hill Dickinson Stadium. It is brand new, state-of-the-art ground of Everton. They actually managed to get it built. So this is what it looks like on the outside of Hill Dickinson Stadium. So let me open the new tab. So this is what Hill Dickinson Stadium looks like from the outside. I actually got to see this stadium when I was making my way to Liverpool in the dock. I got to see the stadium. Super modern ground. I know Goodison was such a historic place, but man, it is absolutely marvelous externally. Absolute gorgeous venue. And here's what it looks like on the inside of Hill Dickinson Stadium. This is what it looks like inside of Hill Dickinson Stadium. 52,000 people, actually. It's larger than Goodison. Oh, Goodison? Goodison is now used for the women's team. By the way. So Goodison is now used by the women's side. It's turned into the women's stadium for Everton women. And the Everton women's team now plays at Goodison Park. Which is great, though, because I'm glad they kept Goodison, though, for the women's team. But yeah, Goodison is such a rich stadium with rich history. Goodison Park. Goodison's such an iconic stadium. You can't. Yeah, same thing here. Like I got to visit Goodison. Such a historic ground. But yeah, the city of Liverpool is rich in football. I mean, between Everton and Liverpool, you basically can't go wrong with the city of Liverpool. But yeah, happy for the Toffees, baby. Oh yeah, Freiburg, that's right. Freiburg is with SC Freiburg. Yeah, the Dream Stadion is actually the Dream Stadion is actually now used for the women's side, and the B team still use it, which I think is still cool. But yeah, Freiburg's an interesting club, by the way, too. Like I said, Germany's got some really great ones. Though, you know, the sad thing, though, about German football is, though, many of its most biggest clubs are not even in the Bundesliga. Some of the most historic clubs in Germany are actually in the second tier, crazy enough. That includes the biggest of the second division clubs, Schalke in Gelsenkirchen. They put in a 62,000 seat stadium. That's a huge club with a rich history in Germany. You also have Hertha Berlin. Hertha Berlin plays in the second division. That's another historic club. Kaiserslautern, FC Nuremberg are all historic clubs that are in the second division with long histories in Germany. So, yeah, here's the thing though. If Schalke get promoted next season, which I think it's pretty likely they could, I know I'm going to be doing the Riviera Derby with Dortmund. Because that derby, the Riviera Derby with Dortmund, oh boy, that one's a really special one. That one is the one I'll definitely be doing. The Riviera Derby, absolutely intense matchup. I'll definitely be doing that. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Bayer Leverkusen, or Bayer Leverkusen, but not Bayern Leverkusen. It's Bayer, because, well, let me tell you about why that's the case. Bayer 04 Leverkusen in Leverkusen, North Rhine-Westphalia. In the Bundesliga, they play at Bayer Arena, but this is a very different type of club than Bayern Munich. Whereas Bayern Munich was more amateur focused and all that, Bayer Leverkusen was actually founded as a company club. It was founded by workers in the paint factory, better known nowadays as Bayer, whose headquarters are actually in Leverkusen, and it was formed as a company club, which also participates in athletics, gymnastics, basketball, and handball. However, it was separated by the football department in 1999. So it is a company club as a result. Very different origins than Bayern Munich, of course. The main colors are red and black, which features in their playing kits and badge, and their main rival is FC Cologne. Of course, Bayer Leverkusen were promoted back in 1979 and have remained in the Bundesliga ever since. They won their first top-flight honor in 1988 in the UEFA Cup. And Pergola, you probably know what club they ended up being to get the UEFA Cup in 1988. Yes, they beat Espanyol to get their first ever honor. Then they won their first domestic honor in 1993, a DFB-Pokal. And they finished up runners-up in 3 competitions in 2002, but included a Champions League. Yes, they almost won a Champions League, but Real Madrid didn't prevent that one. However, after 30 years, they finally won their first Bundesliga title and their second ever DFB-Pokal in 2024, become the first German team to win both the league or domestic double unbeaten, while setting the European record for the most consecutive unbeaten competitive games at 51. And of course, that team is one of the most iconic teams in German football history, led by Xabi Alonso, of course. But of course, Leverkusen has kept that rise ever since, and always been one of the top clubs in Germany. So, absolutely enormous club. Yeah, trauma there. Yeah, definitely. Bayer Leverkusen, very successful German club with a rich history of the sport. So, one interesting thing about Leverkusen, so some of the nicknames, the full name of Bayer Leverkusen is Bayer 04 Leverkusen Fußball Gmbh. The nicknames include Die Werkself, the Factory 11, and Die Schwarzroten, the Black and Reds, are its nickname. And yes, the owner of the club is Bayer, because obviously they still have ownership. So it's interesting. Usually German clubs are owned by the fans, but Leverkusen is a bit unique as a club because they are founded as a company club. German clubs are usually led by the 50+1 rule, stating that a club must hold 50% of its voting power and +1 vote to maintain control. And the main goal is to limit the influence of external investors and protect the club structure. However, there are 2 exceptions to this rule. Leverkusen, and Wolfsburg, and that's because they were both founded as works clubs, and the corresponding companies supported the club financially for many decades. This was a lot of offset financial losses at the end of the year. But of course, there in 2025, there have been neat improvements regarding the exemptions, so it could be assumed that in the future, the German Football League would demand more say for the parent club in the future, or members would have to be more closely involved. That being said, of course, Bayer Ulfer were also the first German club whose fans identified as ultras. And even though the club was founded at the 20th century as an issue for employees, many fans of other clubs say that they are a plastic club existing solely of the creation of the rich pharmacy sponsor, Bayer. However, the words of the club actually have started to be with pride, called the Company 11 or the Tablet Twisters. So that's kind of the club's nickname. They actually have embraced their hatred, the other people hating them. Which is kind of funny, people saying, oh, boo-hoo, they're a company club by Bayern, but they were found by actual company workers. That doesn't make them less plastic. In fact, if you want to talk about an actual plastic German football club, you can go all the way to Leipzig. Because that is the single most hated club in Germany. Or Hoffenheim are like the two most hated clubs in German football. That's far more plastic than Leverkusen has been throughout its history. So this is Ludwigshafen and Mannheim. And Mannheim is a big historical university town here in this part of Germany. So, very historic stuff, of course. However, the thing was, though, their origins weren't even that unique, actually. Far from unique, in fact. There have been other company corporate origins that have corporate origins. You have the Dutch club PSV in Eindhoven, which I've actually flown over before. The German club Carl Zeiss Jena, which was in East Germany. Arsenal were a company club because of Arsenal Woolwich. West Ham United because of the iron workers. And Stade de Reims in France were all founded as work teams. And another thing people don't realize was that until 1999, the football department of Bayer is still part of its existing parent club, which accords the 50+1, which was in accordance of the 50+ rule, which was very different from the Red Bull teams. So as a result, due to their tradition and stuff, UEFA allows Bayer Leverkusen to use its name in European club competition, while disallowing such practices for other clubs in Europe. So yes, they're not actually as corporate as people realize. Yeah, Mannheim is okay, not my favorite. Gotcha. Same here. It's a university town. Definitely lots of history though. So we're gonna head up into Frankfurt, of course. We're gonna head to Mainz first. They now play in the Bayer Arena, or the Bayer Arena, in Leverkusen since 1958. Now, of course, compared to the absolutely massive arena that we talked about earlier in Allianz Arena, this stadium is far smaller, 30,000 people. Of course, it went through a lot of modernizations in the 90s and 2000s to upgrade from 22,000 to 30,000. It's hosted several matches of the FIFA Women's World Cup. And it's definitely known for their design, mainly the fact this stadium was actually mainly used for renovations. And there was renovations in 2009 with the most recent, with VIP suites, second-tier seats in the east, north, and west sections, a new oval roof, and complete rebuild of the club's facilities that transformed it into now a pretty modern stadium. For European football, of course. But definitely a very nice stadium, though, for Leverkusen. Pretty cool. And here's their club honors. Like I said, nowhere near as big as Bayern Munich, of course. But that being said, this club has had some really important history, of course. One of the big things about Leverkusen, they've won the champions in 2023-2024 with an iconic team that was led by Xabi Alonso. Xabi Alonso helped Leverkusen win their very first ever title. 20 wins and only 6 draws. They absolutely dominated that year. Yeah, that year's team was absolutely special. That year's team was absolutely special. That team was special, of course. But they've been runners in more than a few times. They've been runners up many times, in fact. 1996-97, 98-99, 1999-2000, 2001-2002, 2010-11, and the 24-25 season, the previous year, of course. They won the DFB Pokal twice, and runners 3 times, and won the Super Cup in 2024. And of course, they were runner-up in the Champions League and runners-up in the Europa League. The only reason they didn't win that competition was because Atalanta stopped them from winning that one. But yeah, pretty successful club. No worries, Paragalda. Thank you so much for coming on by. I hope we see you again soon. So our final slide for today is the Bayer Leverkusen players. Some of the greatest talents of Bayer Leverkusen's history, and they got a lot of historical stars. Their greatest icon, of course, their club's greatest single icon, Ulf Kirsten. 240 goals. He's their all-time leading goal scorer, and he is also played in the third most games of any Bayer Leverkusen player, the black one, Der Schwarte. First player in history to reach 100 total caps with playing with 2 different national teams. Helped Bayer Leverkusen win the DFB Pokal, and even got them close to winning the Champions League as well. The guy was an incredible goal scoring talent for Bayer Leverkusen. Then we have Florian Wirtz. Their greatest recent talent, of course, Florian Wirtz. Incredible talent, and he was the main guy who helped put this club to finally win the Bundesliga, and helped them win the Bundesliga, DFB Pokal, and got them close to Europa League as well. Incredible young talent, though now he's at Liverpool and he got a payday in it too, approximately 100 million pounds, a massive payday at Liverpool for Florian Wirtz. Then we have Lucio, one of the most talented cornerbacks in football, of course. Z Roberto was their big star during their Champions League run for all those years. Jonathan Tah has been one of their longest-lasting players in the modern era for Bayer Leverkusen, but now he's at Bayern Munich as well. But he was a big piece of helping Leverkusen. Then you have Stefan Hisling, a big part of, he's their second leading goal scorer of all time. Played 344 matches at Leverkusen. And of course, Thomas Horster. He's their second leading all-time player, 453 appearances. Was an important part of their run in the UEFA Cup, their first major honor, of course. And then one of the greatest Asian players of all time, Cha Bum-kun, one of the greatest Asian talents of all time, for South Korea. And he played much of his European career at both Eintracht Frankfurt and Bayer Leverkusen. So that's pretty much all their talents at Leverkusen. So there we go, guys. That's our slides for today. So that should cover all of our slides. So, of course, the river here is the Rhine. The Rhine River, of course. So the Rhine River. The Rhine River is Europe's the second longest river in Central and Western Europe. After the Danube River, it's the second longest river in Central and Western Europe. Goes all the way from Switzerland, and it goes into the Netherlands. It flows north to west. So from Switzerland over to the Netherlands. But the Rhine has a rich history. It's an important cultural and military history that the Romans have been trying to do. And mainly was the border for the Romans, of course. And of course, there are many historic cities on the river, including Mons, Leverkusen, Cologne, but also in France, Strasbourg, and of course, Rotterdam is one of the major cities in the Rhine. So, pretty important river, of course. So, pretty important stuff. We're going to be coming here soon. So we'll turn left and we'll head our way over to Mons, of course. Now, Mons, funnily enough, to brief think about this city. This is the capital largest city in Rhineland-Palatinate, 223,000 inhabitants, the 35th largest city in Germany. This city was founded in the Romans 1st century BC as Castro Magneta, come by the Roman general Nero Claudius Drusus. And it became the capital. It became the capital of the Roman province of Germania Superior. But Mons really grew, however, in the 12th century as one of the SHUM cities. A league of cities like Speyer, Worms, and Mons as the cradle of Ashkenazi Jewish life, and the center of Jewish life during the medieval period. It's also the birthplace of Johannes Gutenberg, who actually invented the printing press. He actually was from Mons. Or Mainz. And it was also heavily damaged in World War II. But of course, one big thing about this city, obviously, is its carnival. The Mainzer Fastnacht, which was developed in the early 19th century, and its root from the criticism and social political injustices under the shelter of cap and bells. And today they still imitate the troops of the past. So, pretty cool stuff. Here in Germany. So, why? So, really cool stuff. Mainz is definitely a very unique city, of course. So here it is, MEWA Arena, home of FC Mons. So we'll enter here. And now we're going to head over to Frankfurt. A little bit of talk about Frankfurt, of course. Frankfurt am Main is the most populous city in the German state of Hesse. It's 770,000 inhabitants, making it Germany's 5th most populous city. and it was first documented in 794 and has been an imperial city since 1372. It was a city-state and one of the most important cities in the Holy Roman Empire. Um, of course, since 1945, it's been culturally, ethnically, and religiously diverse, with half its population having had a migrant background. And of course, Frankfurt is the global hub for commerce, culture, education, and tourism, and site of many global and European corporate headquarters. Due to its location in former West Germany, Frankfurt Airport is Germany's busiest airport and one of the world's busiest, with the most direct routes to the world, and the primary hub of Lufthansa, the national airline of Germany, and Europe's largest airline. It's also a very powerful location for banking, too, with the European Central Bank, Deutsche Bundesbank, Frankfurt Stock Exchange, and more. Of course, let's not forget lots of museums and educational institutions, parks, and gardens. And of course, it has its own football club. And my favorite German club, believe it or not, Eintracht Frankfurt, my favorite German club in Germany. It's because they played in Louisville the last few years. So I guess I adopt Eintracht Frankfurt as my favorite German club. So here it is, guys, Frankfurt Airport. Yep, anyone who's ever done airline flying in Europe is probably familiar with this airport. It's last year, 2024, 61 million people flew out of Frankfurt. 2,300 acres. And it's the busiest airport in Germany and sixth busiest in Europe. Istanbul is the busiest in Europe, then London, Paris, Amsterdam, and Madrid. And it serves the most direct routes, 333 destinations on 5 different continents, which is actually insane. Basically, the only continent I don't think in 5, I think it's 6 continents on 5 different continents. Let's see how many destinations Frankfurt actually serves. Let me find Frankfurt on the map. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, they don't serve Australia. That's weird. Frankfurt to Australia. That's interesting. How far would be a Frankfurt to Sydney flight? Has that ever been considered Frankfurt to Sydney? So we're going to be landing, I think we're going to land in this runway here. Not nearly as many people. That's weird. I'm surprised no one's ever done Frankfurt to Sydney in a flight. Surprised no one's considered that. But yeah, this is Frankfurt. Pretty cool airport. definitely a lot of flying in Germany, of course. So we'll stop here for about a few minutes and prepare for the next leg. So we'll stop here for about a minute. Lots of people fly in and out of Frankfurt. It's a super popular airport to do some flying. So if you guys want to join our Discord and stuff and are interested, here's our Discord if you guys want to join on in. And here's our route for today. So we have one last leg left to go into Leverkusen. We're about 104 nautical miles out of Leverkusen. So we do have one last leg left to go. So we'll be getting up here in the air very soon. So let's go ahead and get ready for the last leg of the trip here into Leverkusen. Let's go ahead and get this plane taken off. Let's see how short we can take off out of this airplane. Max flaps. Let's see how short this little plane took off. But yes, these planes were really unique. In fact, these planes are so good at their job that these aircraft were even used in Papua New Guinea. Yes, these Ju-52s were such workhorses that they were even used in Papua New Guinea because they can handle some of those small high-altitude airstrips, which some people can't even believe that you can even take these things to a place as inhospitable for pilots as PNG was. But yeah, they were very popular. Bob Gibbs actually did his own thing in Papua New Guinea. In fact, they were even used over the DC-3 for Papua New Guinea because the three engines had more higher load capacity, and with three engines gave them greater safety. They're heavy and they're terrible, but they were magnificent for the job. And apparently they flew these into little strips that are only 1,600 feet long, like these Ju-52s. Like, can you even imagine doing something like this? So here we go, guys. We're going to enter into Deutsche Bank Stadium, the home of Eintracht Frankfurt, since 1952. But yes, they were actually used in that region, which is pretty crazy to think about. It's still one of the craziest aviation. So here is Deutsche Bank Stadium, the home of Eintracht Frankfurt. So here, Germany. So here we go. And now we entered into downtown Frankfurt. We'll be flying over there. And then we'll head over to Leverkusen. Pedal to the metal, baby. Now, yeah, now Caravans, Kodiaks, BC6, and Twin Otters, of course, because unlike the Junkers, of course, those things have many of those things are meant to be purposely built STOL planes, and they mainly come with reverse thrust to help they can take off and land short distances. But yeah, the fact these things were used for those roles, I think, makes it extremely impressive, considering that's not what the J52 was even designed for. But it shows that some planes last a long time. The fact these things were even used over the DC-3 was even crazier. But it just shows how much aviation can change for roles. Like I said, roles people never even realized can be used for. But yeah, those things were used for cargo, mail, passenger transport, local development, and more. Such an interesting warbird, of course. So we'll go ahead and make our way over to Leverkusen. So we only have 93 nautical miles left to go. So we'll be making our way over to Leverkusen. Mm. Mm. So we'll be making our way over to Leverkusen, of course. So some interesting other things about the German league, of course. There are plenty of other really great clubs in Germany, but here's the crazy thing: most of the top clubs in Germany are actually in the western side of the country. That's because, unlike the eastern half of Germany, the western side are just much wealthier in general. So they're able to have more money to support the clubs, unlike in the eastern side. In fact, the only clubs that are around the eastern half of Germany that was East German is Leipzig, but that's because that's Red Bull. Union Berlin is a really interesting club, and they have an interesting story too. And the only other Eastern club, and then the last one that's also in the East, I think those are the only two Eastern clubs from East Germany. So we'll be making our way over. So we'll be making over here pretty soon. So we're going to continue on. So, of course, moving ahead to Leverkusen. One interesting thing about the German clubs, of course, definitely their rich history, obviously. So I'm going to look at the websites, of course. Let's look at Bayern Munich. Here we go. So this is the Bayern Munich website for FC Bayern. it's of course it's in English, obviously, because obviously a club as big as Bayern's gonna have an international fan base. So you can look at the club itself, its history, the rich history of Bayern Munich, their Hall of Famers, their presidents. So if you look at their Hall of Fame, you have, of course, the Kaiser himself, Beckenbauer. You got Paul Breitner, Mr. Reliable Philip Lahm, Oliver Kahn. The medal collector, you have Lothar Matthaus, the leader of the pack, the bomber Gerd Muller, and then you have Bastian Schweinsteiger, and more. Many more legends, of course, of Bayern Munich. There's going to be several more in the Hall of Fame. I mean, Manuel Neuer. I know Thomas Muller is going to be in that Hall of Fame very, very quickly. I mean, the most decorated German footballer is going to definitely make his way here. And here's their fan base. I mean, they have over 4,500 fan clubs worldwide. And they got fan clubs from all over the world. They got a fan club store, so you can search your fan club. So we can do this. So if I do my, so yes, they got fan clubs in the United States. So if I do this, put fan club name in the United States, they have all sorts of fan bases. San Antonio, they got one St. Louis. Hey, look, they got a Bayern Munich out of Kentucky and Lexington. Yes, they got a Kentucky fan club for Bayern Munich. California, and this, I mean, 94 of them, and that's in the United States. Yes, the U.S. Of course, there are thousands in Germany, probably hundreds, if not thousands, in Germany. But Bayern Munich, massive club, is an understatement. And they even have their own store, too. And that's just the fan clubs, of course. Of course, you can also visit the club museum, obviously, the FC Bayern Museum. They got a lot of different activities here, all the historical stuff here. You get a lot of their trophies and all the other stuff from Bayern, of course, which is pretty cool. And of course, they even got tickets, plus the stadium tour for 25 euros. You can take that and the stadium tour as well for Bayern Munich, which is super cool. Which is pretty cool and all that too. And of course, you got the online store for Bayern. You got all sorts of stuff. And yes, we continue to shop. They ship to the United States. Of course, I don't want to get this year's kits. This year's Bayern Munich home kits are absolutely terrible. The worst Bayern home kits in a long time. However, their scarves are pretty cool, though. They got some pretty cool ones of Bayern, their scarves. Bayern Munich and all that, of course. But yeah, they got a lot of stuff in their shop. But Bayern Munich, massive club. The other one is Bayer Leverkusen. Here's their site, of course. Bayer Leverkusen. Yeah, work self, the work team, of course. So they got Bayer. So a little bit about the club. About the club itself. For top flight Germany, promoted ever since 1979, they've remained there, and they've been one of Germany's most successful clubs since 1979. Really great arena about the history of the club and its long history. You got some pretty fun facts, of course, all their rich history. But definitely the peak of Leverkusen's definitely been the 2020s. Winning the Bundesliga in this era was extremely impressive. Extremely impressive feat, for sure. Um, and they got a lot of fan-related stuff too. And they got their own shop here too. So they got some matchday. They got their jerseys, of course. Here's their home jersey, of course, with New Balance on. Looks pretty cool. The emblem's all red and black. Definitely pretty stylish kit. Definitely better looking than the one. Definitely better than the one I was looking for. Definitely still better than the. Definitely better than Bayern Munich, of course. So yeah, they got different scarves, of course. Bayer Ophir. Some really cool stuff too. So that's Bayer Leverkusen. Really interesting stuff about Leverkusen. That basically is the end of the notes and stuff. So we're 67 nautical miles from Leverkusen. So we'll be making our way over to this area very soon. So how many pictures I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we got 8 images. So we'll be heading our way over to Leverkusen. So So, outside of this, of course, our next game day flight's the Madrid Derby. Will be our very next game day flight. So that will be our next game day trip. Will be the Madrid Derby. Will be Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid would be our next game day flight. The 27th is going to be interesting because I don't know what's going to happen March 27th. I'll have to look at the schedule for a bit. Though I believe it might be baseball season, so maybe we might finally do a baseball stream. But let me check the schedule though. Then April 3rd would be AS Monaco and Marseille in France. So I'll let you guys know what the schedule, of course, is going to be. So, this is what it looks like outside, of course. Absolutely gorgeous scenery this morning, of course. Absolutely gorgeous afternoon flight. So, of course, in terms of our stuff this weekend, my local club, Louisville City, is going to be playing this weekend. Louisville City will be taking on its home opener tonight, actually. Tomorrow is its home opener against Miami FC. So Louisville City finally gets a chance to play in its first USL game of the year at home. So looking forward to the first home game of the year for Louisville. Looking forward to that for the USL Championship. So some pretty fun games, of course, on the schedule. So we're going to head over this direction, of course. And we're going to fly into this direction. We'll be there for around 53 nautical miles. So we're pretty much around 30 minutes away from our final stop here in Leverkusen. So some interesting facts about Leverkusen. I do want to talk a little about it. Leverkusen has a population of 163,000 inhabitants, making it one of the smaller cities of North Rhine-Westphalia. Of course, Leverkusen is home to the pharmaceutical company Bayern. Leverkusen dates back to around the 12th century, and this area suffered quite a bit from flooding. Leverkusen was ravaged during the Cologne War from 1583 to 1588 between Protestant and Catholic factions, and this area was pretty much rural until the 19th century when industry led a development that led to the city of Leverkusen, one of the most important centers of the German chemical industry. One interesting thing about Leverkusen was that when the chemist Karl Leverkusen looked for a place to build a dye factory, he chose Wiesdorf. Yes, the city was Wiesdorf. In 1860, he built a factory for the production of the artificial ultramarine blue at the Karlberg in Wiesdorf, and he called the emerging settlement Leverkusen after his family home in Lennep. The factory was then taken over by the Bayer Company in 1891. Bayer moved its headquarters to Wiesdorf in 1912. And then Leverkusen proper was founded in 1930 by merging Wiesdorf, Schellbusch, Steinbuchel, and Rheindorf to form Leverkusen. Of course, a lot of this area was bombed during World War II by the RAF and the U.S. Army Air Force, but a lot of it was rebuilt. So that concludes a bit of the history here in Leverkusen. Bayer was founded here, of course. So. So we're doing pretty good here, of course. Like I said, teams are getting used to flying a plane without autopilot on my streams, so I'll have to keep an eye on my... Sorry if I'm not keeping my eye on the chat too much, because we're trying to keep this plane centered, of course. So, any OGs that know my series, I've flown this, I used to play, I was playing a lot more back in 2020. I actually did a whole series on it. The Lufthansa Berlin to Beijing flight that would happen in 1926. Since that plane that actually flew the flight didn't come to the sim, the J52 was the closest substitute. Of course, so... But the main points of interest here in Leverkusen include the Bayer Arena of home Bayer Leverkusen. You have the Bayer Cross Leverkusen, which is the largest illuminated advertisement in the world. They have a Japanese garden that was built around 1913. And the mausoleum of Karl Duisberg, who was the founder of IG Farben. So, we're going to be out to hear Leverkusen very shortly. So, um, so we'll be back for another one of those for next week, of course. But so trying to move this back over to. So basically to the, of course, Leverkusen is actually northwest of the city of Cologne, which of course Cologne is one of the biggest cities in the Rhine. So we'll be heading over here soon. But yeah, I'm excited to do the Rhine Riviera Derby when that comes into Germany. I can't wait to do that one. That would be a lot of fun. And we'll do a proper one through the Black Forest. Freiburg. So for about 19 nautical miles from our final stop here in Leverkusen. So of course there's some other really great cities in this region, by the way, in the North Rhine-Westphalia. This is actually one of Germany's this is actually the most populous state in Germany with over 18 million inhabitants. Of course, there are many other really big cities in this state. Um, they include Dusseldorf, Köln, and more. And there are many big cities here. Um, but Cologne is actually the biggest city in the state with 1.1 million residents, of course, is Cologne. And that's just northeast of here. Cologne, of course, you all probably know. Cologne is it is home to the very famous Cologne Cathedral, the Kölner Dome, which is the world's tallest building. It was once the world's tallest building from 1880 to 1890. Yes, this was the tallest building, and still is today the third largest, tallest church and tallest cathedral in the world. It's absolutely enormous, and here's the crazy thing: this thing actually almost survived World War II. It was badly damaged in the war, but they managed to rebuild the entire thing and repaired it. Cologne is also really well known for its rich culture and stuff. Cologne has also got many galleries, universities. In fact, Lufthansa actually has its corporate headquarters here too. Cologne Bonn is also its regional hub too. So, yeah, we're about to get very close into Leverkusen. I can see it in the distance, so we will descend here very shortly. So we're going to start descending here. So in the distance, we can see Cologne all the way from here. So big old city of Cologne in Germany, absolutely huge. Cologne's got its own carnival, one of the largest street festivals in Europe. And Cologne also is also famous for its rivalry with Dusseldorf. It's one of the big inter-city rivalries in Germany. So, pretty important stuff. So here it is, guys, Leverkusen. And it does have photogrammetry, it turns out. So welcome to Leverkusen. So. So here, guys, is the Bayern Arena, home of Bayer Leverkusen. Of course, for some reason, trees are growing in the middle of it. For some reason. And we'll turn left. And that will be it. There's our last picture. There's the Bayer plant. This is where Bayer produces a lot of the chemicals and stuff. And there's the airport. Let's see if we can get this laying down. Only 2,200 feet above sea level. This should be interesting to see the landing, of course. Let's see if we can get the landing down. This should be interesting. A bush landing. Being a grass strip landing here in Leverkusen. Not bad. And thankfully she stops pretty quick. Yeah, this J52 stops really quickly. Holy heck, this plane stops quick. So we can just park here and we wrap up the stream, everyone. Hey, I do not have one cooker. Whoa, careful. Oh, crap. There. So no, I don't have one. So that is the end of the trip, everyone. Welcome to Leverkusen. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. We'll be back here on Sunday to do Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee and North Carolina. So we'll see you guys then. We'll find someone to raid, of course. I think we'll raid. Let's see who we're going to raid. I think we'll raid 757's Spy Flight, actually. We'll raid him. So thank you guys so much for coming onto the stream here today, and I hope to see you guys soon. Take care, everyone, and have a great rest of the week. Goodbye, everyone.